Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Just Listen to Yourself with Kira Davis. I, of course, am Kira Davis, and this is a podcast where I ask you to take some of your typical talking points on hot button cultural issues and draw them out to their logical conclusion. Because I think when people get a chance to really dig into the things that they believe, sometimes your ideas change. Sometimes you become more convinced of your point of view. And sometimes you get to the end of that logic and you realize, no, I haven't really thought about this as well as I thought I had. And it'll lead you to a different conclusion. And I think that's fun. As always, I'm so excited to be here on the FCB network. We had a stellar August. You guys, last month for us was the biggest month we've ever had. We blew all our records out of the water. I'm so proud to be a part of this team. And I'm just thrilled that you have joined me once again to let me persuade you about some things. I don't know how much persuading I'm going to do today. It depends on what your point of view is on this subject, but I'm not out to persuade. But today I just have to discuss because this is crazy. I saw an interview yesterday with an actor named Thomas Middleditch. You might not know the name. It might not be a household name, but you've probably seen him. He's having a moment right now in Hollywood. He is a comic actor. He is the star of HBO's hit comedy show, Silicon Valley, and he's also the ad representative for Verizon Wireless. He's the brand representative. So he's really raking in the cash right now. He's also married. He's been married for 4 years to a lovely young woman named Molly. Now, if you want to go look up Thomas Middleditch, go ahead and plug his name into the searches, and this story will come up because it's kind of a big story in the entertainment news today. So even if you haven't heard of him, I think if you click on his name, you'll recognize him. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. The point is, he gave this interview to Playboy, which I read. I was thinking the whole time, this guy's drunk. He has to be drunk because there's no way that he would say these things out loud thinking that they would be accepted or acceptable. So he basically admitted that he has an open marriage. That's not that unusual. I mean, it's something we've all heard of. It actually is statistically unusual, but it's something we've all heard of. You know, it's not the craziest idea that we've seen. But he said, but it was the way he described this open marriage. I mean, first of all, he talked about it like he was so proud of it, you know? He actually credited swinging with saving his marriage. Let me read to you what he said about his open marriage to his wife named Molly. And this is what really got my hairs raised because it wasn't necessarily the idea of the open marriage, even though I'm going to talk about why just that's a bad idea, period. But that wasn't what got me because adults make decisions for themselves all the time. And I've been married 20 years, so I know that what goes on inside a marriage is not what gets shown to the world. You know, your marriage is kind of a secret. The love and the intimacy between the two of you is something no one else can experience, even your own children. So it's kind of your little secret. That's kind of one of the fun things about a healthy marriage. So I already was thinking this is weird, but this is what he says. He says, after I got married, I was like, Molly, I'm sorry, but we have to get non-traditional here. To her credit, instead of saying, F you, I'm out, she was like, let's figure this out, he recalled. To be honest, swinging has saved our marriage. We have different speeds and we argue over it constantly, but it's better than feeling unheard and alone and that you have to scurry into the shadows. I wrote an article on this and you can find that article over at redstate.com. It's called Unsolicited Advice. I drop it every Friday. It's the column where I offer advice to people who never asked for it and who don't know who I am. I do it every Friday. It's a regular column, but this Friday I tagged Thomas Middleditch and I wrote it about this. So this is what I wrote. Thomas goes on to say that it hasn't necessarily been a smooth ride. In fact, it sounds downright stressful, especially considering Middleditch's fame and how that affects his prospects as compared to his costume designer wife. He admits she isn't as excited about the arrangement as he is, and there's a constant negotiation for her comfort level when he explores opportunities. And here's another quote from him. That's one of the trickier elements of it all, because Molly doesn't get that. And yet she has to witness it. I'm like, come on, what about this chick who's obviously really into me? And Molly will say, yeah, she's into you. Where do I fit in? That question comes up. It's a game of inches on a minefield to try to predict who's going to feel safe, he concludes. My first concern is Molly. Anything that happens has to be run by my queen. I just like it. I'm sexual. Meow, meow, meow. Alarm, alarm, alarm. Danger, Will Robinson. Molly, run. There was nothing healthy about that expression. There was nothing healthy about it. And it's typical for artists to feel like they're kind of ahead of the game when it comes to traditions. It's because you're so creative, it's not weird for an artist to say something like this and sound like he's really just discovered something new and exciting. So that part doesn't surprise me. What's so crazy is that, first of all, he admits that he's breaching her privacy. He, at one point in the conversation, he says, I don't know how much I can talk about this because Molly's a really private person and I haven't run any of this by her. But I can guarantee you that Molly was not really excited to A, have her sex life put on blast, and B, not only that, but for everyone to know that she's not comfortable with this sex life. She's not comfortable with this type of, quote, intimacy that you brought into the marriage. She didn't even want it in the first place. You had to convince her. She didn't want to leave the marriage. She didn't want to lose the marriage, so she turned to this lifestyle. But it sounds like she still hasn't really accepted it. And he's just like, oh, everything's fine. Everything's fine. But it was so egregious. I just thought, there's no way that she's okay with him talking like this. She looks stupid. And if I were her, I would feel most embarrassed about that. He violated her trust. He violated her trust in the first place. I mean, we have to get non-traditional about this. That's a hell of a bomb to drop after you're married. That's not what she went into the marriage looking for, obviously. That's a hell of a bomb. We have to get non-traditional about this. So her trust has already been violated that first time after you come to her and tell her, well, I know I said this one thing when we got married, but I didn't really mean it. And if we want to stay married, I have to change. That is pulling a rug out from under your partner. Marriage is where you're supposed to feel safe. And I don't see anything safe about this situation. So I want to talk about not polyamory, because I think that's something different. I can't keep up with all the terms, kids. I'm 45 years old. It's getting hard. I want to talk about open marriage and swinging. And I want to talk about what that means, because I know there's a lot of you out there who are saying, well, to each their own. And if it can work, then good for them. And honestly, that was my first reaction, because I think we've all been conditioned to think this way in modern society. We have removed the ability to pass judgment. Only God can judge me. We like to say that. Only God can judge me. First of all, that should scare you. That's not a good thing. But also, no, not only God can judge you. We make judgments every day. I make a judgment about what the best bra to wear with this shirt is going to be. I make a judgment about the length of my daughter's shorts when she leaves the house. If she's a young teenager, blossoming teenager, if they're too short, I make a judgment about that. We make judgments all the time. The idea that we're supposed to remove judgment from our life is ridiculous, and it's killing us. It's hurting us. This is how we get people like Thomas and Molly, who really don't know which way is up in their marriage. Judgment isn't condemnation. Judgment is wisdom and logic, and applying it to your life situation in order to make your life more palatable, in order to make your life easier to live. It's a survival instinct, really, if you think about it. So don't tell me we're not supposed to judge. Again, I went there myself the first time and then realized, what am I talking about? Yes, I'm going to judge this situation. I really don't think that, generally speaking, an open marriage can work. And I know that there are some of you out there who are probably either looking forward to being in an open marriage or who have changed your mind since marriage and believe that an open marriage is what will be good for your marriage. It will save your marriage. Thomas Middleditch says that he just is non-traditional. He says he likes sex. I just like sex is what he says. I'm just sexual, and perhaps that's what you're saying. If you support this lifestyle, I'm a sexual being, and I don't think humans are supposed to be monogamous. I don't think monogamy is natural. You hear that a lot. I don't think monogamy is natural. It's typically a guy, but honestly, I threw up this article this morning, and I've already had a number of responses from men who said their wives actually had left them in search of a swinging lifestyle. So this isn't something that is just for men, but I see men use this justification a lot. But the idea is like, monogamy is not natural. It's not natural for a man to be monogamous. It's not natural for you to only have sex with one person the rest of your life. Let me put up my hand and stop that argument right there. Let's take that logic all the way to its end. It probably isn't natural for one person to only have sex with one other person for the rest of their lives. It probably is unnatural for one person to stand up in front of a group of people and exchange a ring with someone they love and say, I will never leave you. I will never divorce you. I will never love anyone else. I will never give myself to anyone else. That probably is unnatural. I don't think that's an argument for that. I don't think that that's an argument that marriage is not right. Do you know what I mean? Like, sure, monogamy is unnatural, but we do all kinds of things that are unnatural. I don't know why we look at the natural world and say, this is how we're all supposed to be. We're always fighting nature. Isn't that the entire battle of humanity? We're always fighting nature. We build walls to protect ourselves against the elements. We disrupt the chaos of nature with patterns, with our patterns of living, with our patterns of logic. It's not natural for human beings to fly, and we fly. It's not natural for human beings to live in space, and there are 5 people circling this earth right now as I speak, up in space. It's not natural for us to do a lot of things. It's not natural to climb mountains. I don't know why you white people do it, but it's unnatural. There's a lot of things we do that are unnatural but good for us because our nature is broken. Now, I'm going to take it to church. If you don't want to go to church with me, you can turn off the podcast now. But we are born into sin. Our nature is sinful. That is the natural state of the human soul. That is a natural condition of humanity. We are born to sin, and then we spend our lives fighting against the natural impulse to sin. That's where Jesus comes in. I won't go further than that. If you want to know more about Jesus, hit me up on the DMs. I'll talk to you about Jesus. But the point is that we are born into a fallen state. And so the idea that some things are natural. I'm just doing this because it's not natural to be with one person for the rest of your life. It's not natural, but it's right. We're fighting it. Marriage helps us fight against our human nature, a nature that is broken. You know how people always say, follow your heart. No, don't follow your heart. The Bible specifically says your heart is wicked. You cannot trust your heart. Do not follow your heart. Your heart's not going to lead you to the right place. Your heart is wicked. The Bible says that. So no, I don't take into account this argument. Monogamy is not natural. It's usually dudes making that argument too. I don't think it's natural for a guy to be monogamous to one woman for the rest of his life. That doesn't mean I don't think it can't be done. That's the whole point of marriage. That's the other thing that bothered me about Thomas description of his marriage. There was a lot of I's in there. A lot of I'm just sexual. I like it. I told her I have to do this. I get approached. She doesn't. I have to think about this. I have to argue. I have to think about, everything was him. And I'm sorry, Thomas, that, when the sparkle of your, the honeymoon sparkle of your marriage wore off, that you were really disappointed in the realities of marriage. But the reality of marriage is that it's not a dream every day. The reality of marriage is it's not about how your partner serves you and how your partner makes you feel. This was an entire interview about how Thomas feels and what Thomas wants and what Thomas needs. And that's not marriage. In marriage, your partner's needs come first. Yeah. Your partner's needs come first. Part of the reason why so many marriages fail is that way too many people go into marriage thinking that it's going to make them feel better. It will, I can attest to this. It will make you feel better for a while because it's love, love is love. And we all love to be in love. But marriage is no different than any other relationship in the respect that you bring your own baggage into it, and no one person can make you feel better about yourself for your whole life. That's a heart issue, and only you can work that out. So a lot of people go into marriage with the expectations that it's their partner that's going to make them feel better. But the harsh reality, the harsh truth of a marital relationship is that you are there to serve. You are there to serve your partner. Oh, I can already hear some of you already. Kira, I don't need to serve him. He needs to serve me. I do everything around here. Blah, 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 XYZ, this, that, and the other. I can already hear you. But that is not the relationship that God has called us to in any aspect of our lives. We have an entire section of the Holy Bible. We call it the New Testament. You can call it the Christian Bible, but it's all about sacrifice. The whole thing is about sacrifice. The whole thing is about how we put the needs of others before ourselves, others who don't even deserve it. So when I look at what Thomas is saying, I say Molly putting his needs in front of her own. And I appreciate that she thought about it. I get that. What a scary thing for your young new husband to come to you and say, by the way, I think I don't want to do this anymore. And you've put all your eggs in this basket. What a frightening thing. So I give her credit for thinking about it. And I guess she's trying it. She doesn't sound like she's really into it, but I guess she's trying it. But I guess I can understand. I guess what I'm saying is I can empathize. I can understand that in her mind, perhaps she feels like this is me sacrificing and serving for my partner. But Thomas is not doing the same. And so a lopsided relationship like that can't work. A marriage is two people coming together to make one life together. And it sounds to me like they have two different lives. Marriage is a reflection of what the kingdom should be. Taking it to church again, for those of you who aren't in church, the kingdom is just, the earthly realm, heaven and earth, all of it. What everything should look like outside of your home. Your marriage is meant to be a representation of that. So is parenthood, by the way. Parenthood is also a representation of God's relationship to us. I heard a great quote the other day. Oh, it blew my mind. Talked about why so many young people are turning away from Christianity these days. And perhaps it's because so many are missing a father that they do not understand how to relate to God the Father. Boom, boom, boom. My mind blew. I was like, yeah, man. Because it is a representational relationship. That's what's kind of genius about the way God sets us all up. He sets us up to have little microcosms in our own lives, little microcosms of our ultimate relationship with Him. And that's what marriage is. It's the idea of sacrificing for each other, like Jesus sacrificed for us. It's the idea of loving unconditionally, loving when you don't want to, the way that Jesus loved us, even when He clearly didn't want to love us in that way. He didn't want to die. He didn't want to be tortured and die. He was so scared of it, He cried blood. That's an immense level of stress. He did not want to die, but he did it because when you love someone, you sacrifice unconditionally. I know a lot of people struggle with the First Peter. It's First Peter, right, where he talks about the relationship between a husband and wife and how a wife should submit to her husband. And a lot of people have a problem with that. They have a problem with the word submission, which is silly because it's not. I don't think the word is submission in the original Greek. It's something else, but submit is the closest English translation. So already we're mad, but only because we're getting the wrong translation. But then no one ever reads on. No one ever reads on from that verse, which is, wives, submit to your husbands, and husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. And Jesus died for the church. He was tortured brutally and suffered mightily for the church. So it sounds, in my feminist brain, sounds to me like women actually got the better end of that deal. My husband has to die for me. I'm not going to make him. But, there's a whole dynamic there that we ignore. The idea isn't about these words, submit, serve. It's about coming under one headship, in a relationship, God being the headship, and saying we're creating one reality here. We're not living two different realities. I'm getting in the weeds a little bit there, but you get my point. So no, I don't think that the argument that it's natural for a man to go out and sow his seeds or to want to be sexual, but it's not love. I don't get that argument. Now let me go back to that issue of, look, it's not love, it's just sex. This is what Middleditch is saying. This is what a lot of you who are in open relationships say to justify yourselves, to justify. It's just sex. It's not love. Again, these are all, why is it that all of these crazy things that come up are always proposed by men? This isn't women, and it's always women that get the short end of the stick, isn't it? Whenever a man decides to make decisions in a woman's space, it's always the woman that gets pushed aside, right? Look at what's happening with the transgender athlete thing. And we have men, grown men, saying, well, look, I believe I am a woman on the inside. Okay, fine, but your body is a man's body. But we're not having any controversy over women transitioning to men and then going into men's sports and dominating men's sports. It's only women's sports that are suffering. It's only women that are getting pushed behind because these men come into the space and tell us what a woman is and tell us as women we're supposed to accept it. It's always us that are getting pushed aside. The idea of open marriage is not new, everybody. It's not some modern thing. Go back and read about Mary Shelley. Go back and read about Robespierre. Some of the great philosophers, some of the greatest writers of the 18th and 19th century. Look up Bohemian and see what that means. I think for a lot of people, Bohemian seems to mean like hippie. No, Bohemian goes way back. It goes way back to the late 1700s, early 1800s. And Shelley was an adulterer, and he wanted to have an open marriage. So he believed in the Bohemian lifestyle. Seduced his wife, Mary. I believe she was actually a mistress in the beginning. Seduced her into the lifestyle. The idea of an open marriage and sexual commune, that's not new. Artists have been pulling that crap since the dawn of time. Male artists. It's just a way to get more booty. It's not new. Let's talk about the issue of sacrifice. What is Thomas sacrificing for Molly? It doesn't look like he's sacrificing anything for her, and yet she's making all the sacrifice of her comfort levels. He's not asking the questions that need to be asked. Let's talk about the act of sex. Let's talk about that, what it is. The act of intimacy. I'll read you what I wrote in my article. Let me put my glasses on here. I'm only recently having to admit that I need reading glasses to actually read. After many miscommunicated texts in which I refused to put on my glasses. I do need glasses now. Okay, fine. I'm getting older. This is what I write. We have we have to be non-traditional about this is a hell of a bomb to drop on a spouse after marriage. While I understand that you perhaps may have felt disappointed by the realities of marriage once the sparkle wore off, what you so sadly don't seem to get is your marriage isn't about how well your partner serves your needs. It is about how well you serve your partner's needs. Marriage isn't a selfish institution. It's the exact opposite. It requires us to put the needs of our partner ahead of our own. As difficult as it may be at times, there's a rich reward in that. It builds a foundation for a lasting commitment that isn't based on how you feel, but what you promised. It engenders something that is ultimately both vital and extremely sexy in a marriage. Trust. Molly can't trust Thomas with her desire. You see? And that is the thing about sex inside a marriage, about the intimacy of the act. It isn't simply a physical act. Men and women see sex differently. Men are literally givers and women are literally receivers. And I'll just let you do all the math on that one. But yeah, so we've even just simply the physicality of the act, we view it differently. Men are givers, so they don't need to worry too much about the feelings involved in it or the emotions involved in it. You know, men aren't wired that way. Not that they don't have emotions or feelings involved with it, but it's just that physically speaking, the act is more physical than it is emotionally, literally, like just biologically speaking. For women, it's different. It is a receptive act. We are allowing men to, for lack of a better way to say it, penetrate our intimate space, our intimate spaces. We are literally opening ourselves up to men. So there's emotion involved in there. There's a vulnerability involved in it. And what marriage does is it protects that vulnerability. What it says is, okay, these two people have stood up in front of their friends, family, and God and said, I promise to be with you, to keep you safe, to hold your heart safe, and to support you our whole life. I promise. And then sex is the act that seals that. And every time you are intimate with your partner, that's what you're saying. You're sealing that promise. So when you invite a third party into that, you have violated that trust. So look at Thomas's wife. Molly's already been violated in the marriage bed simply by Thomas saying, oh, by the way, I've changed my mind about what marriage really is. I know I promised you one thing, but, I think it's got to be different because I'm too horny. So he already violated her at the top of the marriage, but then he's violating her again because he's bringing a third party into the marital bed. And I don't care what anyone says, feelings get involved. I tried to look up statistics for open marriages and the divorce rates. First of all, there's not a lot out there because people aren't really open about their open marriages for obvious reasons. And what I did find is that about maybe some of the rough estimates are 4 to 9% of married couples claim they have an open marriage. And of that, their divorce rate, about 4 to 9%, the divorce rates are, about 50%. And that's just what they know. But I found several articles by psychologists who said that they've never really seen it work. There are exceptions to every rule. I understand that. I hear Will and Jada Smith have an open marriage. They've been married forever. They might have some other arrangements going on in there that add to that situation that I'm not going to talk about right now. But yeah, I ran into article after article after article by psychologists who said it can't work because what happens is a lot of couples set up rules. They set up rules for themselves. And then as long as they're following the rules and they've mutually agreed to this, they seem to get along just fine. But eventually someone always breaks the rules. Do you know why? Because sex and love and intimacy are inextricably mixed. And even the people who say, I just like sex, it's just physical for me, are giving away a piece of themselves every time they are physical with someone else. And just because they don't see it that way doesn't mean it's not true. And eventually it catches up with you. It always catches up with you. That's what every psychologist I was reading said. This always catches up with you. They're not even talking about it from a religious point of view. Here are rules. Here's an article that I found very interesting in Psychology Today. It's by Stephen J. Betchen. He is a psychologist, and he says that he gives some examples. Okay, here's one couple, Pat and Sean. They had a polyamorous relationship, and it broke down when Pat decided to have sex with her lover in the marital bed. Sean considered this an egregious breach of their pre-established rules and insisted the couple throw out their entire bedroom set. And he also threatened divorce. Here's the thing, even couples who agree to the open marriage understand what they're risking. There is an innate understanding that this sex thing can turn to intimacy and emotion very quickly. They have to set up the rules to avoid that. Do you see what I mean? You want to talk about natural. If you want to talk about what's natural is for a man and a woman to want to exclusively be together. That's actually what's natural. And I didn't hear Thomas say anything about his wife's partners, so I don't know if she's like, are they swinging like it's just him and two chicks? Because yeah, I'm sure that's a great deal for him. Does it change if she's with another man? That's the other thing to ask, because a lot of times it does. But here, these couples who are in these open marriages have agreed to these rules. They have to have the rules because they know how quickly it can get out of hand. And every time it does, because eventually someone breaks the rules, because this isn't what your marriage was based on, and this isn't what you promised each other at the start. The idea that marriage is just a piece of paper and it's meaningless is a garbage idea. It's a garbage idea. It is way more than a piece of paper. It's unquantifiable. I can't even explain it to you. It is so deeply spiritual, historical, traditional. It's emotional and moving. It changes you. It changes who you are. It is so different than just having a relationship. That is why it's my theory. I'm not a scientist. I don't know if you guys know this. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. But that is why I truly believe that is why so many couples who cohabitate couples who cohabitate before they get married actually have a 50% higher chance of divorce than couples who don't live together. So already the divorce rate in America is actually dropping. It's about 40-ish%. That I don't know what that's due to, but it's actually getting down below 50%, but still very high rate. But then within that subset, it's an even higher rate of divorce among couples who have cohabitated together. And yet we push that as a way to know if you're ready for marriage or not. And I think it's the worst thing you can do. I think the worst thing you can do is live with somebody before you're married. Because here's why. Hang on. I know like half of you are living together right now. I'm not condemning you, okay? Just do you. I don't give a rat's ass about how you live your life personally. I'm just giving you an opinion, okay? So you don't need to write me all in a rage saying I'm not condoning your lifestyle. I'm not condoning your lifestyle, but you don't need me to do that. So just pretend I'm just giving you an opinion, which is what I am doing. It is my opinion that couples who cohabitate are fooling themselves because they think that marriage is just two people living together. And so they live together and they say, hey, if we can live together and get along, like we're committed. We're not seeing other people. Isn't that what commitment is? Just being monogamous. We're monogamous. That's commitment. We split the bills. That's commitment. It gives you a false idea of what commitment is. It gives you a false idea of what marriage is. And then they get married and they think, oh, it's smooth sailing now. We're finally married and, we've been doing this thing for 10 years, 20 years, sometimes 30 years already. How hard can this be? And then they don't get it when their whole world flips upside down. They don't understand why they suddenly feel so differently towards each other, why their feelings have intensified, whether it's anger or bitterness, whether it's love or, their sexuality. They don't understand. That's because what you were doing before wasn't marriage. It was just two people sharing a bed. Marriage is different. It changes you. And when you get married, you're not saying, I've decided that I love you and I just want to make this official. That's not what a marriage is. That's not what it is. When you get married, what you're saying is, I'm making a promise to keep you safe every day. And that I'm making a promise to make you my priority, to make you more important in this relationship than me. And that's a two-way street. If it's lopsided, like Thomas's marriage, that's a disaster, right? But that's a two-way street. If you have two partners, you go into that. Marriage is promising. It's not just a promise, it's a covenant. Covenant is different than a promise. It's stronger. It's supposed to be unbreakable. I think people who cohabitate beforehand, they go into marriage and it looks different than when they were just living together and they don't know why. And they think it's because they have fallen out of love. And that's not what it is at all. They were unprepared for what marriage was. And so marriage is more than just a piece of paper. And it is more than just an agreement to not have sex with anybody else. It is you two creating a space where both of you can feel safe, both of you can grow together, and both of you can explore intimacy together. Because there's real power in true intimacy. There's so much power in that. And I think that's why a lot of people are discouraged from marriage. A lot of people find divorce because the power of intimacy is overwhelming. And a lot of people really can't handle it. To me, that's why you need God in a marriage too, because he's the author of intimacy. If you don't have God, if you're not regularly, touching base with God and touching base with his purpose for what the marriage is, then, I think first of all, you don't have the playbook. So it's hard to know which direction to go in when things get tough. But second of all, what it is like, we don't have the ability to really cope with the true intimacy of marriage on our own. Some people do it. Again, there's exception to the rules. But I think most people end up, quote, falling out of love, which I find hilarious because marriage is not about being in love. And in love is just the beginning part. In love is involuntary. Loving someone is a choice. It's a choice. I didn't choose to fall in love with my husband. That just happened. He was handsome and nice and he made me feel good and I fell in love with him. After we married, I realized I loved him. And that means on the days that I can't stand him and want him to go away and think I maybe made a mistake getting married, I still choose to love him. I choose him. And that's what's really offensive and hurtful to me on Molly's behalf when her husband came forward and told the whole world that he doesn't choose her every day. Can you imagine what that does to a wife, to a woman? To him, it might just be sex. And it is just sex because it seems to me like he doesn't know what intimacy is. And so he doesn't have that with Molly. So for him, it's just sex. But for her, there's a lot more involved. And so she's having to put aside her own needs to make sure that Thomas's needs are met. I think this is a grave, grave error in judgment. I do not think an open marriage can work. Again, there are always exceptions to the rule, but every psychologist I read in the brief, bit of research I did for this episode, I didn't come across one psychologist who thought it was a good idea for marriage. If you want to explore and you want multiple partners, then don't get married because that's not what marriage is. I don't think Thomas Middleditch saved his marriage. In fact, I can guarantee you that after he gave that interview, his wife gave him holy hell, as she should have, because it's freaking embarrassing what he said. It wasn't just like, he's like, well, we have this relationship and it's mature and we both came to this and I'm not going to say much else about it except that, I love my wife and to each their own. No, he put everything on blast and he didn't even make her sound good in it. He didn't even make her sound like she had any control, any agency, any say in what was going on. He made her look like a fool. An open marriage ends up making someone look like a fool. And I'm sorry that we all have this idea that marriage is supposed to be some blissful, hot, sexy experience 100% of the time. Nobody has that much energy. Marriage isn't about your sexuality or your needs. Marriage is about someone else's needs. Marriage is about looking at someone and saying, I love and respect you so much that I am going to promise to be your soft place to land for the rest of our lives. Because I want to see you succeed and I want to see you happy and I want to be the person that gets there with you. Marriage is about creating a family. Marriage is about creating stability. It's two people becoming one, Literally, that is the act of sex. That is literally the act of sex. It's two people finding their way to the most intimate places inside each other. And when you bring a third party into that, there's always going to be drama. At some point, there will always be drama. There's already drama even without that. I mean, my husband and I have never had other partners, since we've been married, but that doesn't stop there from being drama around sex. I'm not saying that the drama goes away. I'm just saying that this is opening yourself up for disaster. And if you think that this is a mature decision, if you think that this is some kind of marital victory, we have an open marriage and we're so enlightened that no, you're lying to yourself. You're delusional. Your open marriage is not a victory. Your open marriage is a bad idea. If you're sitting here yelling at the radio or whatever you're listening on and you're thinking, Kira doesn't know what she's talking about, she's closed-minded, I guarantee you that you are not in an open marriage. You are in a pre-divorce coupledom. That's what you are. You're simply in a pre-divorce partnership, because the very act of intimacy is already thwarted by inviting outside parties into your marital bed. And then if you're like Thomas, you're not really being honest about what your partner needs and what they want and like. So open marriage is a bad idea. If you don't want to be committed to one person for the rest of your life, then just don't get married and do whatever it is you want to do. I think Thomas Middleditch is fooling himself. And I don't think it's going to be long before he's divorced. If Molly has any good sense, she'll leave, because this article was full of red flags and you can do better, girl. If this is not what you want, you don't need to acquiesce to this just to keep him. And I know it's so hard. I know it's so difficult because you love him and you want to make this work, but he's not doing everything he can to make it work. He's not. This whole thing is about him, and it's his job to serve you. And how are you being served? This is the type of situation that divorce is made for. And I don't take the D word lightly, and I don't think anyone should. But this is the type of situation that's made for when you are not safe inside your partnership. You deserve better, Molly. You deserve better, whoever you are out there, who your partners just asked you if you can have an open marriage, if you can have other partners, and you're thinking, am I a prude? Am I being closed-minded? No. If you are not comfortable with it, say no and remind your partner of the promises they made, and then go get counseling. And then if that doesn't work, leave. Marriages aren't meant to be open. Marriages are a secret shared between two people and God and no one else. Okay, guys, that's it. This has gone longer than I thought. I had a lot to say about open marriage. Give me your thoughts on open marriage. You can email me, write me at kiradavis422@gmail.com. Or you can drop a comment on my Facebook page at realkiradavis, and it's the same on Twitter at realkiradavis. Thank you to the guys over at FCB Network and to all of my FCB Network brothers and sisters on the network. I'm so proud of y'all. We had a great month. Let's kill it in September as well. Next month's Halloween too, so maybe we'll have some spooky ratings then. Okay, guys. That was dumb. I'm dumb. Bye, you guys. I'll talk to you next time. Until then, hey, listen, just take a moment every now and then to stop and listen to some of the things you're saying and see if they make sense. Bye.